Hello and welcome back to the Dandelion Diaries. We are doing another ink exploration today, and today is going to be greens number 4. Yes, I know, number 4, but we are now into the dark green ink categories. I want to preface this with, I thought I had more dark green inks than I did, so I apologize if this section isn't as exciting as some of the other ones. I mainly only have like 2 brands, okay, 3. I have Ferris Wheel Press, Diamine, and Monteverde, and I thought I had more dark green inks than that, but nonetheless, we're going to continue. For supplies, we have our 𝗬𝗏𝗁𝐺 A5 notebook here with the original Tomoe River paper. I have a Kakimori brass tip pen here with the Sakura wood handle, a eyedropper, a condiment cup, which was inspired by Leanne Likes, a jar of water, which is up there, and then I have officially started a new t-shirt because the last one I had was starting to dye other things from the ink releasing off of it when I would put water on it. So we're going to continue on with a brand new one. Well, brand new, it's still a used shirt, so it's just going to become a towel now. Anyways, let's get started with our first sample, which is Monteverde Yosemite Green. I have talked about the Monteverde inks several times through my videos and that they are fabulous and a great price point for those wanting to start out. This ink is probably one of my favorite dark greens. I haven't got a full bottle of this yet, but have debated on doing it sooner rather than later. Every time I look at this ink, I think of the dark wood, like dark trees in the woods in Yosemite Park, and I think is a really good complement to those trees. It is a bit of a cooler dark green color. It's not super warm, but I think that's what makes it more inviting to write with, is that it's not a very warm dark ink. It's more of a cool dark ink. The next ink we have is Ferris Wheel Press Peppermint Drop, and I think this is one of their very first ink releases. I'm not 100% sure, so don't quote me, but it is a beautiful, cool toned dark green ink again, but this one has a bit of a sheen to it, and it's very, very pretty. When you first swatch this ink, you will probably think that it's a little bit more teal than green, but as it dries down, it is definitely more green leaning than blue. Therefore, I consider it more of a dark green color. And then with that red sheen with it, it definitely embodies a very good Christmas color if you were wanting to do a dark, cool toned green for Christmas. Next, we have one of the Diamine ink vents. This is Spruce. This is from the 2022 green ink vent, and this is a scented ink. It is supposed to smell like pine trees, and I would say that it does a pretty good job of that. I would say if you couldn't get your hands on Ferris Wheel Press Peppermint Drop, that this is a very close color to that. It is a little bit more green than blue. I would say it's a warmer, cool toned green, but it does have a very similar red sheen to Peppermint Drop, and you'll see that as it dries down. I will say in my experience, the scented inks have a wetness to them that is very unique. I wouldn't say it's super juicy, but they definitely write a little bit thinner, and they have a bit more of a wateriness to them, I guess, but it doesn't really affect the pigment. It's just one of the properties I've noticed of any scented ink that I've used is that they are a little bit thinner. Next, we have another ink from the Diamine Ink Vent collection. Again, I'm sorry, I thought I had more variety, but this is the main ink that came with the 2022 green edition, and it is called Best Wishes. I don't know if I really consider this as green. I think they wanted it to be green because it is the green ink vent, but I think it honestly has a very cool undertone to where it might even be considered a dark teal. But the shimmer in it is chameleon, so I think that's really what makes it lean a little bit more green, and you'll see that as it dries down. Out of all of the inks, I would say this is probably one of the darkest, and that it is almost black green, maybe black teal, not really sure, but it is still a very beautiful shade, and with the shimmer and sheen that it has, I feel like it adds a lot of depth to this color. Moving to the next page, we have another Ferris Wheel Press ink, and this one is Cloak and Forest. When I originally picked this ink up, I thought it was going to be much more blue, but as it dries, it is definitely a dark green, and I feel like it's really unique because of its sheen and shimmer properties to it. Again, another shimmering ink, but it's quite interesting as it dries down. When we get to the dried swatch, you'll get to see the reflection that it gives, and I'll leave it at that just so I don't give anything away too early. So as I said, when you first watch it, it looks blue, right? It looks blue to me, at least in person. But when it dries down, it ends up being this more green color, and it's really, really pretty. I think they wanted it to be a very foresty green color, and I think they achieved that with this ink. I will say, however, because it is so dark, when you write with it, you can't really tell that it's green. It looks almost black on the page. So I would say maybe it's more of a green-black. But regardless, a unique ink all in itself. The next ink is another Ferris Wheel Press, and this one is Twinkling Tea Party. I almost wanted to include this one in the regular green category just because it is very green in the undertone, and that's what it even says on the packaging, is that it's a green ink. But I feel it is very dark to be considered just a plain green, and the sheen and shimmer that it has also makes it a little bit more dark to me. Kind of like, I guess, what they were going for with the Twinkling Tea Party, probably resembling something of the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland. I will say, out of the inks on the right page, this is my favorite out of everything. I know we haven't gotten to the dried swatches yet, but it is one of the only full bottles I have of dark green ink, and I love it so much because of its green undertone and that it's also shimmer and sheen. Again, I know that's not everybody's cup of tea, but I hope you can see why I love this one so much. The next ink is DeAtramentis Jane Austen, and this is actually going to be the last of my sample. I inked this up for July of 2023 and ended up re-inking the pen again because of how much I loved this ink with writing. I will say, out of all of the inks, this one is probably the most plain. It doesn't really have anything exciting on it. It's not super crazy with shading or sheening or anything like that. It's just a plain green dark ink. It does have a little bit of a dark shade to it, which is what I loved about it, but I don't think I'll be buying another sample of this or even a bottle just because it's a little too mundane for my writing likes. The next ink we have is Monteverde Crocodile. I recently picked this up with the other Monteverde inks when Goulet Pen had their 25% off ink samples. And I'm so glad that I picked this one up because it is very interesting. However, I do think it is very close to the last sample we will do, which is Monteverde Green. And the last ink sample we have is another Monteverde ink, and this one is just Monteverde Green. You'll see as I swatch it next to Crocodile, it is very, very close. So I don't know if it would be worth picking up both if you wanted to get a dark green color, but I do think the Monteverde Green itself, just the plain green, is a little bit greener, if that's even possible, than the Crocodile. And I didn't really do a very good job with my spacing this time when it came to inks. I was sure I had enough room, but apparently I did not. But that's okay. Overall, we still got all of the inks on the page, and they will all showcase their beauty to you once they have dried down. All right, now that all of these are on the page, I'm going to let them dry, and then I will be back in a minute, and we'll do close-ups of everything we have on the pages. All right, everything is dried for the most part, so I will zoom you guys in, and we'll do some close-ups. Starting off with our very first swatch here, Monteverde Yosemite Green, still one of my favorites with the shading and the minor red sheen. It is a beautiful dark green color. It is a little bit cool leaning, which I think most of these are, but I still really like this green color. Then we had Ferris Wheel Press Peppermint Drop. Look at that red sheen. It really does remind me of like a green peppermint or even a red peppermint, just because of that red sheen in there. It is a very cool toned dark green. Some may think it's a little bit more teal. I really do think this is just a dark, cool toned forest green color, and I think it's perfectly named in my opinion. They did a very good job with this one. Then we had a very similar ink, and this is Diamine Spruce. Look at that red sheen yet again. It is scented, so it does smell a little bit like pine trees. I will say if you wanted to get one over the other, there isn't that much of a difference. Diamine typically is a wetter ink, and Ferris Wheel Press is a little bit of a drier ink, just in my experience. So if that's something you were taking into consideration, there you have it. Then we had Diamine's Inkvent Day 25. This is Best Wishes. This is a beautiful dark foresty green color, and it's considered chameleon because it has a red-blue shimmer to it and also a red sheen. It is very pretty. In person, I will say the blue shimmer shows up a lot more versus on camera, I feel like the green shimmer is showing up a lot more. Then we had Ferris Wheel Press Cloak and Forest, and the ink pretty much speaks for itself. It's got this blue steely shimmer to it and then a red sheen and this very, very, very dark, cool toned forest green. It is so pretty. I definitely imagine this is what Red Riding Hood was going through, and I think that's why they named it Cloak and Forest, but I still think it's really pretty. Then we had my favorite ink out of the whole group, and that is Twinkling Tea Party. It is this warm, like muddy forest color, and then it has this rose gold shimmer and a red sheen. It looks beautiful. I haven't journaled a full page of this yet, but it is on my list for one of my future currently inks for this year, so stay tuned for that. Then we had DeAtramentis Jane Austen. Again, I used up the last of my sample for this swatch since I used it for my July inks. I really do like this ink. It's a very standard ink. I think if you wanted a dark green standard ink, this would be a perfect choice. I don't think I'll be repurchasing another sample of Jane Austen or a bottle just because it is a little too standard for my liking, although the dark blackish green shade to it is really nice. Then we had the last two, which was Monteverde Crocodile and Monteverde Green. I feel like these are just too stinking similar. They are almost the exact same color to me. They have a minor red sheen. They both have a little bit of a darker green shade, and they're pretty much the same color. Let me know what you think. I mean, I know the camera picks up differently for different monitors and stuff, but I really think these are pretty much the same ink. They just renamed one Crocodile to fit in with their line for the animals. But let me know. Overall, I really do like the selection of green inks that I have, especially the dark green. I will be looking to add more dark green considering I only had like 3 different brands, which I was really shocked about. But let me know which one you think looks best in the comments. I still love Twinkling Tea Party by Ferris Wheel Press, and I also really love Yosemite Green by Monteverde. But I know there are many of you out there who have great ink suggestions, so if you think there is a dark green ink that we should all look out for, be sure to leave it down in the comments for the rest of us. But if you're interested in more ink swatches I have done, whether it be ink explorations or collections, be sure to check out the playlist down in the description and also up in the cards. And if you're interested in more content from me, I do post on my Instagram pretty regularly with ink swatches and planner stuff, and you can follow me over there. I will leave my handle on the screen. But for now, thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate and love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.